So my name's Babette Rothschild, and I'm I guess, the creator of somatic trauma therapy. I never thought I had a method, but when I published my first book, my editor said, no, you have a method. So because I have synthesized, integrated so many other people's ideas and whatever, and as time has gone on, added more and more of my own point of view and my own experience. What I'd say more is how my point of view has strengthened in terms of wanting to really make sure that each and every client has options for their healing from trauma, that let me say some things and then you can decide if you want to edit them out. But I talk about these things in the beginning of volume 2. I believe the field of trauma had, with many successes and many failures, puts way too much emphasis on the past where nothing can be changed. Okay, and yes, don't misunderstand me. For some people, reviewing what happened to them, processing their memories and their emotions about what happened can be very helpful to them moving forward in their life. Okay, to healing, moving forward in their life. But there's also a good portion of people who either don't want to visit the past, and nobody should ever be forced, or by working on past, by reviewing their trauma memories, either on their own, as a lot of people do, or in a therapeutic situation, actually become more distressed, more dysregulated. It's, for some people, it's not healing. And I think that one of the biggest disservices our field has done is not equipping therapists to help each client distinguish whether there's somebody who processing trauma memories is going to be helpful to, or if there's somebody who processing trauma memories either right now or altogether isn't going to be helpful to. And so this is a real foundation of my work, is making those distinctions. I start off The Body Remembers Volume 2 telling the story of a mother who emailed me because her child had been taken, had early medical trauma, still suffered from that. The child's 9-10 years old. And the parents had taken this child to 3 of the best trauma therapists in town, 3 different methods. I won't specify what they were because it really doesn't matter. 3 different methods. And each of those therapists, which to this day enrages me, each of those therapists worked a few sessions with this child and then told the parents, obviously they didn't each use the same words, but in essence, each one told the parents, I can't help your child because she dissociates too much. So this mother wrote to me about this, and I wrote her back and I said, I'm so glad you wrote to me. I'm so furious on your behalf, so disappointed in my colleagues on your behalf. Dissociation is a central part of a trauma response. If a therapist isn't going to work with dissociation, they shouldn't be a trauma therapist. And what the therapist, what each of them said was, I can't do any real work with your child. And I said, what they meant by real work was processing trauma memories, which is only a small, which should only be a small part of trauma therapy, of real work. And if they had done real work, which comprised helping the child with dissociation, helping the child be more in charge of their body, mind, their life, help them stabilize, be more in control. So I wrote the mother and I said, what I would suggest is one, you find a therapist who isn't going to push trauma memories. And two, you do everything you can to give your child more control over her life. Anything, even if it's down to what toothbrush she uses at night, getting to choose what she has for dinner or whatever. Anyway, so a few months later, the mother wrote me and said that they had indeed found a therapist who wouldn't push trauma memories and that was going much better. And that one of the things they'd done in terms of control was because of this medical, whatever, health, physical background, and I don't know the details of that, and that's irrelevant anyway. But anyway, because of that background, the child needed to go to physical therapy. And they had chosen, the parents had chosen the best physical therapist in town, who the kid hated. So they decided to let the child choose her own physical therapist. And that was hugely positively impactful for this kid. So, and this is just one example, but I get, because I'm known for this point of view, I get so many people contacting me on their own behalf or on behalf of somebody else with someone who's been either fired from therapy because they couldn't do real work or has allowed themselves to be pushed in therapy and what we call decompensated, really had become much more dysregulated. And so it happens a lot. We don't talk about it as a profession. If you ask the average trauma therapist, how many times have you had a client who destabilized, who became more dysregulated, decompensated from the work you're doing with it, most of them would say, I've never had that happen. And I don't know how that's possible because I know so many people where it has happened, but a lot of the therapists who are really invested in only working with trauma memories, people drop out, so they never know why somebody left. Or the therapist keeps pushing, telling them, if you're really serious about your healing, you will do this work because it's the only thing that's going to get you better or whatever, which is also so wrong. So I guess I should say also, this is a good disclaimer for your people who might be considering taking the course. I have a lot of respect for just about every method of trauma therapy that's out there. Everything has something to offer somebody. Nothing helps everybody. And no matter what the evidence base says, no matter what your place of work says, no matter what the training program people you've been training with say, nothing helps everybody. In the beginning of the Body Remembers Volume 2, I have a preface on research bias and the evidence base. And in creating that preface, I did some digging and I found 3 meta-studies. A meta-study looks at other studies, bunches of other studies. So I found 3 meta-studies that looked at trauma therapy outcome studies from a variety of different methods. And what these meta-studies found was no method stands above the other, meaning there is no method that's better than any other. And no method helps more than 50% of people. So if your workplace says you can only use this method, or if you're only trained in that method, you can expect that around 50% of people who come to you aren't going to benefit from that method, not because they're resistant, not because they're have secondary gains, not because they want to mess with you, but because it doesn't suit them. Just like a restaurant that's only offering one thing is going to, it might be successful if it's a great thing, but not everybody's going to like that restaurant. One of the things they'll come away with is a greater trust in their own common sense, because it's something I believe a lot in and believe that we are regularly under recognized in the importance of our common sense, and we regularly are taught to ignore it, and I don't want people to ignore their common sense. They'll come away with a lot of tools for an understanding for why either inappropriate or premature work with memories causes so much difficulty. And they will get a lot of alternatives for that. They'll come away with a much more nuanced understanding of the autonomic nervous system, because for the Body Remembers Volume 2, I developed a, can you see that? Developed a new understanding, or not new understanding, a broader understanding of the autonomic nervous system that includes more nuances instead of just this sympathetic, parasympathetic we've had for so long. And that's really helpful in being able to monitor both the client and regulate their dysregulation, and to be able to monitor the therapist themselves to help prevent vicarious trauma and compassion fatigue. And they'll come away with a very solid understanding also of the sensory nervous system, which is very important, very key for helping people manage and contain and heal trauma, but is very under-recognized. Almost every trauma training focuses on the autonomic nervous system, and almost none give the sensory nervous system its due. They'll get a few jokes, they'll get a few films. And they get me as I am. I'm just, my personal mantra is be yourself. So I am pretty much who I am, and that's also the feedback I get.